that's some blues from another world. Then there's blues in America. So that's a little blues.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and it has been an epic 72-hour week, and what a way to culminate my work here at the Art of the Rhythm section, Billy Cobham's Art of the Rhythm section, by interviewing really one of my heroes, a cat, an immigrant to this country, a cat who has just scrapped and clawed his way to the top of the mountain, and he's still learning. One of the humblest guys around, Oskar. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
You hit it right in there. I am always ready and willing to learn. I love surprises. I love feeling on the edge. Always got to be outside the box, but always in the zone. Always be in the zone.
Maybe you can talk to the worldwide audience about how you have learned to access the zone. It's not something that you can learn in a book. Can you talk about staying on that creative razor's edge and getting into the zone?
Yeah, here's a good example. You know, back in the days, I used to record every night on cassette, every night with War. And every night was a jam. And then one of the jams that I listened to in recording, the solo would just blew my mind. And the worst portion of it all is that, thank God it was only for a moment. You can never play the same thing again. And I wanted to chase after that same thing. But it didn't take long, thank God, that I realized that every time I do that, I'm missing another moment in real time that
I love it.
That is different, but it's always going to be the best I can be. Because the best I can be is whatever comes out of me that I'm experiencing in real time, just like the audience and hearing it. If it was anything other than that, it's a monologue and there's no magic. So it's about music being in the moment, and that's what creativity is too.
A lot of people don't know this. You were involved with the ACLU when you first came over here because of this ridiculous situation at Tracy's Donuts. Now, I want you to just Super Spade. We can get into that story later, but the point is this: I'm American. You know, a lot of people we're so polarized now, right? Okay, but there are so many beautiful American cats here, and when you were going through this sort of traumatic, experience where you were arrested for loitering, public nuisance.
370 Penal Code.
You remember, okay?
Yeah.
These Americans, a cat that's tuning in right now, Michael Shreve, for instance.
Michael Shreve.
Okay, he comes. There were so many beautiful Americans that really came and helped you cultivate your career. I mean, is this fair to say? I mean, even in the midst of this sort of debacle.
Right.
You're looking for Super Spade, okay?
Yeah.
You
need to tell them what that
means. So you just riff on the story. I want you to talk about Tracy's Donuts, the chocolate donut you were craving.
Oh, okay.
And then what happened, and then ultimately how you worked your way out of it.
Well, it was simply enough. I discovered chocolate donuts, and I think I was 5 cents, and that's what I had, and I was inclined to want to get a chocolate donut. And so what first happened is, as I was about to walk into Tracy's Donut Shop, this is on 8th Street, in Haight-Ashbury, 8th Street. This guy comes up to me and introduces himself as Super Spade. And
Super Spade.
Super Spade.
Super Spade.
Yeah, okay. So, he started talking to me. What do you do? I say, I play harmonica, from Denmark, and I'm here trying to figure out from here how to get to Los Angeles. He says, well, come with me. So I went with him a couple blocks down, and Jason over in the other corner, whatever that, it was Haight and Ashbury, right there. There was a drugstore at that time, and he took me to the back.
Sucklin's?
He took me to the back of the store and held up a bottle of saccharin.
Saccharin, thank you.
Right. And of course, I didn't know what saccharin was back then, but he explained these little tablets. It looks like Osley tablets, like LSD.
They are Owsley's LSD.
That's what he said. It
I
looks
love
like.
this. I love it, yeah.
And he was going to sell this to these people. In other words, he's going to sell some bunk. He's going to sell this to these people who has ripped off friends of his.
I get it.
That's kind of what I got the story. That's what I got out of it,
Your English wasn't very good at that time, so it was you kind of just floating around.
I was still wanting to get my chocolate donut, so I was trying to focus on that. So I walked back afterwards, and when I got just about to walk in, I hear a boy, "Hey, you!" And I turn around, and it's the police. And the police told me that I had told me to leave 10 minutes ago, whatever. I know it wasn't me. They leaned me against the car, checked me out, and they arrested me. And while they were driving me to, I think it's called Park Station in San Francisco, they were arguing. And they were arguing, you could tell what to arrest me on or something. And I was scared because they must have got the wrong guy, because I was on the streets. I've seen things that would make sense to be arrested for. I don't know what the hell I did wrong. So anyhow, long story short is that they arrested me for the 370 Penal Code, public nuisance and loitering. And the one cop, his name is Arthur Garens, batch number 624. The other police, I never got his name and all that. But Arthur Garens, batch number 624, had a history, I found out later. But anyways, they arrested me. I'm at the Park Station, and they say you have a phone call to make. The other cop actually saw my Danish passport at that time and said, "I'm sorry, we picked you," something like that. So.
Too late, though. I mean, you're there.
Well, I'm arrested, and I still didn't know what I was arrested for. I was scared, I was angry, I don't know what.
How old were you, 19?
I was 8, I was 19, yes.
Wow.
I'd just been turned 19. So anyhow, they told me you have 3 phone calls to make, and I didn't know what to call, so I decided to look up Tracy's Donut Shop. And I did, and I called that number, and the person answered, and I said, "Do you know Super Spade?" And the guy says, "It's me." So back in those days, in case anybody back then didn't live back then, that was a payphone inside the establishment, inside the donut shop.
Absolutely.
And so I guess he was doing his dealings from there. And I said, "This is Lee Oskar from Denmark, harmonica player, and I'm in jail." And he said something, asked me a couple of questions, and then I answered, and he said something like, "I'll take care of you." And that night I was yelling at the guard, I was upset and whatever. In the morning, a bail sponsor came there, and the process, I was bailed out. And I don't even remember, I'm blanked as far as how much time it took or what. But at the point when I finally was released, I went back to Haight-Ashbury, walked, hitchhiked, whatever. And I was looking for Super Spade, couldn't find him. The following day, looking for him, there was a front page newspaper. His name was Bill Thomas, his real name, and he was cut up in pieces and
probably because he sold that bunk
because there was a lot of violence in Haight-Ashbury. You think peace and love.
That's confounding.
I was in a human being. I went through that loving and all that stuff. I was right there. That was the time.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I was trying to find places to crash, and sometimes somebody would tell me a place or have a place for me, and I sleep on the floor or something. And there's been occasions where I was sometimes like I'll be laying on the floor and in the middle of the night waking up, and there's people with guns. You know, I mean, like they had a fallout about some drug deal or something like that. Yeah, there was the undercurrent underneath it all. There was people doing business, and there was a lot of shady stuff. And even they would break into like ridiculous, like back then drugs was like anything. You got drugs? Like I remember they were like announcing on Haight-Ashbury, do not take those pills with the purple little dots. Like somebody had broken into
The labs.
the pharmacy there. Or
Well, they were all
something.
the chemists were making it at the university at the time. You know?
No, but it's not acid. No, it could be anything.
There was just,
They're
wow.
just people, just if it was a drug, oh, well, let me take it. I mean, it wasn't all that flower child. I mean, it was a very.
It was dirty.
It was a very interesting time. I mean, on the surface, it was all really cool. It was peace, man, and all that stuff. But people that were running the show there was some serious things going on.
Talking to Lee Oskar, people having a ball here. Lee, did you pick up right away that a lot of the cats from the area really weren't? They were learning instruments on the bandstand. Did you? I mean, Carlos Santana didn't have a bridge to a song. He was opening for Charles Lloyd.
Well,
Most of the members of the Grateful Dead didn't even know how to play music. I mean,
Well-
did you realize that you could fit in right away because of the fact that
Well,
this
I
was?
mean,
Now you weren't a folk musician, but I mean.
No. I mean, let me put it this way. It's always been about turf. It's not I mean, if you want to fit in, it's not I mean, capabilities have never been a lack. I mean, there's so much talent in this world and so little acknowledgement. I mean, there was a clique in Haight-Ashbury and the Grateful Dead and Big Brother and Holding Company. I mean, Jefferson Airplane. I mean, these were like superstars and had so much clout. I mean, they wouldn't give me the time of day, some hippie on the street. I mean, it's a hit and miss, If I had a chance back then, of course I would. I mean, that's why I was there. I was looking for opportunities to make in the music business.
Would you say? I mean, but I mean, you met Shreve at San Mateo. You were poking around.
I met Michael Shreve. In case anybody didn't know, he was the drummer for Carlos Santana.
Oh yeah, he's having a ball. Yeah,
in Woodstock, the guy who did the solo.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, I knew Carlos back then, and I knew Michael Shreve back then before they knew each other, because I went to see Carlos Santana. At one point, he had this flat up in Haight-Ashbury, and he was looking for new equipment. He was, you could hear him play in this place, but he was looking for new equipment. He was putting some new things together, and I had tunes I wanted him to do. I mean, it never got achieved, but I wanted. But that's so.
Wait, you were already connected to him.
I mean, to the point where I was at his place one time, and I had some compositions I wanted him to do. But it never matured to that. But so while I knew about him and we had met, at one point I was hitchhiking over to Redmond? Not Redmond.
Redwood City.
Redwood City, thank you. And Redwood City, and because I heard there's a band there. And matter of fact, Cliff Castle, now come to think of it, he was living in Berkeley, and he played bass, and he's
Cliff Castle. I don't know that name.
He's the one that owned Audix microphones. He just retired. But back then, I met him, and then I heard about Bob, I can't think of his last name, and this band in Redwood City. So I hitchhiked over there and met up with him. And at his house, the drummer's house, his parents' house. And then after we played, I even had to hitchhike back to find a place to crash or sleep in Golden Gate Park or something. And that's when Michael Shreve I met, and he asked his folks, and I stayed one night at his parents'.
In the garage, or
No.
was it in the house?
In the
I
house.
want to make sure because it was in the house.
In the house, oh yeah.
And you
yeah.
woke up for Sunday breakfast.
Yeah.
And played
how'd
the
you
harp.
know?
Well, because I've interviewed him 3 times, dude.
Yeah, I
I've
played
done 3,500 interviews.
I mean,
right?
I couldn't.
You were burning the place down. I mean, they after that, Kevin, they were like, "Who is this cat?"
No,
dude?
I just felt like I didn't have anything. That was my gift because I really appreciated
Sure.
having a place to stay. They fed me, and So anyhow, I played in that, and Michael and I stayed in touch then because soon after that, with this band that we're talking about, there was Bob, the drummer, his girlfriend's friend, Jennifer Kuhn. Jennifer went to her parents and asked if I could stay there. So I ended up staying, got off the streets, I ended up staying at the Kuhn's. And they took me in like I was like the son. And they even gave me paint because I love painting and drawing. And I did the walls and I did drawings that I could maybe get an art show. And at that same time, I went to San Mateo College to see Michael Shreve. He was there because he was studying music there. And I sat in with him and the big band at one point, just playing a little.
You sat in with the San Mateo Big Band with Shreve?
Well, the school.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
you were playing
just in the classroom or whatever
that's
it was.
great.
It was not a big,
it's great.
Yeah, it was not. And then Doc Rauch,
Dougie Roush, yeah.
who was the keyboard player, with Carlos Santana.
Oh, bass player.
Doc Rauch, the bass player.
Tommy Coster? Or
No, the keyboard.
Greg Rowley.
Thank you, Greg Rowley. Greg Rowley had like an El Camino pickup truck or something.
He was a badass, yeah.
And he offered me a ride, so I would meet up with him, and then he'd give me a ride back into San Francisco to hook up with Carlos. And so that was that era. And and then one day, about Michael Shreve, then some time went by, I finally made it down to Los Angeles. I hooked up with Eric Burton. We used to go to this place in Jam called The Experience. And Blues Image.
That's right, from
Came
Florida.
From Florida.
Yeah.
They came in and they became like jamming in there because Marshall Brabant's the owner were friends. And I used to come in, they let me free in and jam, and then Eric comes in. So Eric and I and Mike Panero and the Blues Image, we used to play together. And then Eric decided he wanted to put a new band together, and I was just fortunate to be there, at that time, and the rest of it is history.
Can you explain the how? At some point, you caught fire though, where Stuart Levine came into the picture with Masakela. How did that? Because that's how you got pulled down to Southern Cal.
Yeah, you're right. What happened? Yeah, wow. While I was in San Francisco, staying at the Kuhn family.
The Kuhn family. I mean, are they still around? Because I'm going to send them a bottle of wine or something.
Dr. Kuhn has passed away, and Mrs. Kuhn has now passed too. And I was
Rest in peace.
Yeah. There was, what was that? You just mentioned, I'm sorry.
Stuart Levine, but there was another cat there.
No, there was a guy, I can't think of his name now.
I know.
George, wait a minute, George Irwin? Maybe. There was this guy who wanted to manage me. And he was in San Francisco, and so he would take me. Matter of fact, one of the times I sat in, there was a little club where the Creedence Clearwater was
the
playing.
Gollywogs.
They were playing in this little club. The stage was really high up in this little room, and I went and sat in with them. Just a year before, I guess they made a deal with Sun Records, I think it was. I remember that now, Sun Records. And but anyway, George Irwin, whatever the guy's name was, he wanted to manage me, and then he had somebody else who inherited $5,000. That was like a lot of money. So he was going to invest it in, so we could drive down to Los Angeles and try to get some deals. And one of the times when I went down there, I had a acetate of something I did. I had something set up at Golden Star Studio.
Yeah.
Doc Siegel, who was the
Doc Siegel was the name I was thinking of.
Yeah, Doc Siegel. He was the main engineer there, and I met up with him. He had listened to the acetate, and Stu Levine was right there. And I remember acting, I was pretending I couldn't hear them because Stu Levine wasn't comfortable for me to hear, because Doc said, "Man, you gotta listen to this kid, man." And Stu Levine said, I'm not interested. And then at some point, okay. So I went with Stu Levine into his room, and he listened to something, and then that became the connection. And then Hugh Masekela, rest his soul, he just passed away.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Fortunately, I was in South Africa, been 2 years ago now, I think. 2 years ago.
You had a chance to see him?
we saw each other, man. It was, thank God, because years before, back to the story, Stu Levine told me to, at such an address on Kings Road, right up Sunset Boulevard, went up there to see Hugh Masekela, and I remember knocking the door, and the lady answered the door, and the ceiling fell down. So I'm feeling at the same time, it was like, oh, and that was Cap Calloway's daughter. He was married to, and
Whoa.
so then they set up a place in Verbena Drive. They set up a house in Verbena Drive, and they would pay the rent. And the band that I came up from the Bay Area came down, and Jennifer Kuhn, and they all stayed in this house. And then, you know, the issue got...
Just for the record, they had the Uni label. Were they trying to get...
No, not Uni. Uni was distributed. They had Chisa Records.
Cheese. Is that how you pronounce it? Chisa?
Chisa. It was...
The Crusaders were on that.
Yeah.
Arthur Adams and, you know, all
Hugh
those...
Masekela and Stu Levine owned Chisa Records.
Cheese. And so there was
it was distributed through Uni.
And so basically they wanted... There was a point that you might have gotten onto Chisa, but that never actually materialized.
No, it didn't happen yet. So they paid for the house and all that, the rent, and they had this band. And then what happened was, the band, we moved to Malibu to this other house that they got set up for us. And there was a Japanese kid, I don't remember his name, who wanted to play guitar or played guitar. And when Humas and the band had been told, this is, I'm assuming, but told by Stu Levine that Lee is the star and you guys are backup. I mean, something like that must have happened, because when we were at that house, they were all staying on this other side, and they wouldn't cooperate in us rehearsing.
Right.
And so this Japanese kid, Hugh Masekela and Stu Levine left town, and this Japanese kid is house sitting and all that. And he said to me, Lee, you have 1 week to get it together, and if not, then you're going to have to leave. And so 1 week came up, and you got to leave. So he said, where would you like me to drop you off? So I said, well, I don't know, La Brea and Sunset. so back on
You
the
want me
streets
to
again.
Unbelievable. For the second time.
So now I'm in La Brea and Sunset, and he gave me a $100 bill. I'd never seen a $100 bill before in my life. And I remember the Palm Desert or something, it was like $6 a night.
You were living like a king.
I was living like a king.
Like a king.
And with today, you wouldn't even think about the places, how far I walked. I mean, I would walk to the airport if there was a cheaper place. I walked to the Whiskey A Go-Go because Elmo and Mario would let me in for free. And that's when I walked in at that point into the Whiskey A Go-Go at one point, and there was Jerry Goldstein, who had met before in the studio that Chris Huston, who became our sound engineer, owned. So they're sitting there with Eric Burden, who I had already connected with, and Steve Gold. You know Lee? Yeah, I know Lee, but he's putting a band together. Yeah, Eric says, yeah, I know. I already talked to Lee and that. So, kind of, and at that point, before that happened, I was ready to just pack it up. It was very depressing.
So that there was a critical juncture there where.
Yeah, I even went to, before that even happened, I went to the same rehearsal hall that was set up at one point for this other band that became a mess. And I went down there, and I can't think of the guy's name who owned the rehearsal hall. But I heard this other band, and I said, man, I'd love to sit in with you guys or do something. And they had managers. So at that point, they wanted, the managers wanted they wanted to manage me to be, I didn't want to sign anything. And then I said to the guys in the band, says, I'll play with you, but I'm not signing something with these guys. And so that turned out to be a thing where they knew I was illegally in the country at that time. And they were warning me, threatening me, they were finding me.
Sure.
And there was a guy named Julie Aiello, now that comes to mind, who was with Epic Records, who liked what he had heard because of some things in rehearsal or whatever it is. So he set me up in a motel. And at one point, I was going to go and see him over at Epic. And I am on the right side of the street, and I thought I was on the wrong side. Get on the side I thought it was, and here comes the parade. There was a parade. And I couldn't get back over there. And by the time I got there, the managers that was looking at me says, "They're coming. You better go somewhere." So it was a crazy time.
I mean, just before we move on, Cannonball Adderley sponsored Airto and Flora. Did you have a sponsor? I mean, how did you wind up getting? Because he basically said, and even Nat was saying, don't sponsor them, and he said, no, I trust them. And
You mean legally in the country?
yeah, they were going to be deported back to Brazil.
No. When I first came, I got what you call an H1.
Right.
That doesn't last very long.
Right. So, who was your sponsor?
It was some people, Julia, geez, I just blanked out. It was two guys. Well, they'll come to me.
It'll come. I want. This is interesting. We just got a question in here from an audience member. You just spent a crazy day here doing, lowrider and these different tunes, and you were talking about guitar parts. And working with guitar players, and Howard Scott, who's tuning in right now, I had a chance to catch a hang with him last year. He's loving this. Can you talk about how you work with students to convey he didn't play cookie cutter chords, right? He didn't play it the conventional. And so I mean, how do you get that across to? Because there are guitar lines in certain songs that people are supposed to like these amazing tunes. The thing is, you can't replicate Howard's chords. How do you still teach? How do you try to get that across?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's nothing. I don't know how to teach it, but I can explain that.
Just riff on it.
I can explain that everything is about chemistry. A lot of it is about chemistry. And with the band War, I don't think any of us would be capable in spirit, maybe not even in skills, but definitely in spirit, to be a studio musician. Because in spirit, in the passion that we all individually have in playing music, there's that selfishness where you want to do what you're in love with in the moment.
As opposed to being like going into the studio and saying, you're going to play this part.
I want you to play
yeah,
that.
I did. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
So, and then, of course, the skills too, sight reading or whatever else it takes. So the bottom line is that, I was at a time where, the other guys like Howard Scott, Charles Miller, B.B. Dickinson, Hale Brown,
Papa D.
Everybody was great players. I mean, my playing was terrible, but my soul and my heart
I love it.
was in it.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
Well, it does matter.
The intentions were there.
Well, yeah, but technically, so I have grown a lot since then. But at that time, my dream was to be part of a horn section. So the notion of being a horn section, harmonica with saxophone, was embraced not just by Eric Burden, but Charles Miller, who was a brilliant sax player, had no...
Incredible. Coltrane-esque.
There wasn't even any thought. I mean, is this something I would think now that could have been apprehensive? I mean, he was so embracing and stooped down to my level, because I know that the thing I got going at my best is melody lines and hook lines. And maybe because harmonica is such a great instrument to get so quickly to those kind of little riffs, that became the horn section, and the chemistry. Back to the chemistry, like say with Howard. My take is, if you look at what is a C chord, an E chord, an A chord, an A minor, E minor, whatever chords you want to look up in any kind of dictionary book, they'll show you the same fingering for, let's say, if you want to play a triad, like a C chord, C, E, G, they'll show you the three notes in the same position. Every book will show you. Now, just if Howard would play those three notes to make a triad, but maybe playing it from a different place on different strings, that already changes the sound. Then the harmonic and saxophone, that's another thing. Then B.B. is a brilliant bass player. Hale Brown could never play the same thing twice because he played within the music. He was so in the moment that he played inside the music, and every day, even if it's the same tune, we would play it in the moment. So there was a lot of chemistry that was in real time. And those things, when they get recorded, it's very expensive to license from the master to use that in a commercial lowrider. It would be cheaper if they just got sync rights for publishing and they re-record it. But to re-record, even though I can give you the guitar lines and all that,
I dig it.
there is something about the way everybody played that it's very difficult to emulate the way we play together, because it's more than just the C chord or the G chord or the dominant and all that. It's just that chemistry. And that's part of what our music is about.
Can you talk about your experience today? You worked your butt off, but I'm just saying, like, how do you convey chemistry on the band? What's the best qualities of leadership on the bandstand for younger cats today, like the ones you were working with today?
Well, I don't know if they were younger. I mean,
they were all. I'm just saying. I guess.
I mean, what I'm saying is that young or older, I was surprised that. Here's the thing. I felt honored because I didn't know what I was getting into, and then when I finally realized, as I am being invited in to philosophize, if you will, like I'm doing now about music and all that, and playing and talking, I realized really quickly that a lot of those cats are actually real good players, and something that I admire about is that the level a lot of these guys were able to play, they still were willing to learn from each other, and so they embraced me to pull out of me whatever slant or angle I come from, whatever that dimension I come from, because we all have our own individual dimensions. So it's to say somebody else in that group could have taken charge and maybe put their thing on light on it. So I'm not going to say I'm the expert.
No.
But I am true to my heart, and I have done true to my heart for many years, because with War and continue the Lowrider band, I've had an experience that most musicians don't have, and that is to explore and find out about yourself, playing music with the same guys every day as a jam, not as the same exact thing. So, if you get to hear yourself play every day, interacting with other people, that is the greatest experience in learning about yourself. So today, I can feel very comfortable to share things that I have discovered with my harmonicas for example, to talk about pockets and grooves and different melodies, different chords, different harmonies, and how all these things work together. Because harmonica is a tool that you can really get to those the relationship between different chords, and that maybe more so than any other instrument. Anyhow, I felt I had some good things to share, and
the amount
and I felt good that everybody was how do you put it, welcoming me,
receptive. Absolutely.
Yeah, accepted.
No, I mean, you talk about a lot of bands. You made a really good point last night. We were having a drink. You said, so many bands they get into this formula trip, and then they get bored, and that's why bands stop. They
quit. I mean, if I was to play it, two things. If you play the same thing exactly the same way every day, that would be a job. And
that's a burn.
Yeah, and with a job, after a while, you would get burned out. But not only you get burned out, the people that come and see you would not feel the magic, because if it feels like a monologue, I mean, if you play something you think is perfect, but there's no that, I can only cuss to explain it. There's, like Papa G said, there's no poop on it. In other words, if there's no innocence, no naiveness in it, it's just so polished. It's a monologue. There's no magic. And so you kill the magic if you're going to try to play what you're supposed to play rather than what you feel at the moment. I mean, that would be like a monologue.
What do you think about how dangerous is it? I don't know if that's the right word, but the fact that, like, my two daughters and younger generations are having digital music essentially crunched into their ears, or they're going to see performances of bands, they're cover bands, and they're covering the song exactly the same way as it's been made on the record by the original group, as opposed to, George Porter, who's tuning in right now, legendary bass player from the Meters, they were doing Fifth Dimension tunes before they were the Meters and
Right.
Stephen Stills tunes, but they were turning those songs inside out and upside down.
Right.
Can you talk about the dangers of the formula trip as it relates to the authenticity of
Well,
music?
I don't think there's anything dangerous. I mean, obviously, cultures change. Look, etiquettes, protocols, social things changed by generations. When we first had a telephone that was available, it was for emergency to call the doctor.
Right.
If the neighbor called the phone in our hallway before coming over, we say, "Is that person crazy? Why would they call? Why didn't they just come and knock?" Now it's like if the neighbor comes knock on the door before calling, you say, "What's the matter with the neighbor?"
Why don't they call first? That's a great point.
So dynamics, people texting. You know what? I can't say one thing is bad, the other thing is good. I can only say it obviously changes the dynamics in our social behavior. Of course, anything live, theater, plays, anything, is a different feeling than seeing a movie, even though it's acting too. I mean, so any different presentations, any way you want to cut it, if it's a different medium and it's a different experience. So if there's something sad about it, maybe there's an experience you would love your kids to have of real, like live music or theater, opposing to not having that experience. I mean,
well, I guess here's the better question.
Yeah.
Because the culture has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Being that, how has the significance of music changed in Western culture?
well, I don't think the music has changed.
The significance of it, though. I mean, as
I
opposed.
don't think the music have changed. I don't people always being the same. I think circumstances, as you say, culture change, and music is a reflection. Always will be graffiti. Any art is a reflection of what goes on. So obviously, what goes on today is different than went on even 20 years ago or 40 years ago. But the human nature has always been the same. Now, I will say that mediocrity is always ruled. I mean, maybe excellency in the world is maybe 1%. I would say out of 100 dentists who all can practice legally, 1 out of 100 might be excellent.
Right.
One out of every 100 professional guitar players, 1 is excellent. So excellency is if everything was just based on excellency, there wouldn't be too many people that could afford it. And I think mediocrity rules because, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who haven't found a passion within themselves, and so that carries on in life. If you are not happy, if you haven't found really that zone within yourself, whatever that may be, it could be being a garbage collector. I don't care what it is. It's not. It's somebody can find that place in their heart where they in love with something. That's different than a job, and if you do everyday things that you love rather than every day you have to tolerate something that you don't like, and then you have to vacate. That's called a vacation. You have to vacate to rejuvenate and then come back and still deal with the expectations of tolerating what you don't love. That's miserable. Now, somebody like myself, I can't vacate from what I love. I am in my zone where I love. So, 1% of humanity is excellent, but I mean, it's not saying that that's always have to be. I would say if everybody found a niche, it would be a much happier place.
We'd have a lower level of ignorance, in many ways.
We would be so busy with ourselves, we wouldn't be snooping in on anything that has nothing to do with ourselves.
You continue to grow. I was shocked actually because you played with so many cats outside of war. That this was your first opportunity to play with Billy Cobham.
Oh man, I feel honored.
Just talk about the aura and the vibe that he brought to the table. What inspired you about this entire day?
Well, first I have to say specifically as today was the fact that I was welcomed and accepted as somebody who, who I could share things in my thoughts and things about the music and yada yada yada, and everybody leaned on it and made me feel like like I had something maybe, that was meaningful and contributed.
Absolutely.
I mean, for me it was, but for everybody else accepted. But the bigger picture is, it fits right into, I think, the persona of who I am too, because I love, see, if there's a difference between, if someone says, hey, you teach harmonica, I'm not a good teacher, but I'm a good person to give my insights and information. And information is not the same as telling somebody how to paint on a canvas. Matter of fact, I don't ever want to be a judge.
That's right.
Because, if I'm a judge, you all won. I mean, how can I say your tree is painted better than this tree? I might personally like that tree better, but who's to say whose performance is better other than your personal opinion? And why should my personal opinion be the official thing in judging? I have to deal with that myself every day, but I don't need to put that on anybody else. So, we all have things to contribute, and this was an amazing experience.
I just want to be clear. What you felt right away was that there was no judgment. Billy and all the guys, they were leaning on what you were bringing.
Well,
in.
they were not only leaning. I got over I got over this intimidation too, because, Billy Cobham is like, he's an incredible player who has been acknowledged. At the same time, there's a lot of people in the world that can be incredible to may never be acknowledged. He's a great player who has been acknowledged, and so there's a lot of expectations. At least I feel in my head.
That's a good point.
And I was asked to be part of this by a mutual friend who's connected with us and also connected with Billy Cobham, who knows how I think and feel about these things, and she said you would be perfect for this. But
you talking about Nancy?
Yeah.
Oh, legendary character, Nancy. Always lays below the baseline, but great.
But I still didn't know, because I expected people to play all these fancy, jazzy kind of things that I would not, it's not my zone, red light, green light, this, that, up, I like grooves and pockets and melodies. And it was very humble. It was really great that what I brought to the table was not only felt good to me, but being acknowledged by Billy, and everybody said that was very nice. So I feel at home. I'd come back in a heartbeat. I'd come back every year if he wants me.
Well, I had an opportunity to be in Napa earlier this year with a dear brother of yours, Greg Rico, and I just would love you to give a message of inspiration. He's having a ball with the family stone, the reincarnation of the minus Sly. But can you talk about what Greg Rico's meant to your career?
Well, Greg Rico is more than my career. Greg Rico, we were little puppies. Both.
He was born and raised in the city of San Fran.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that we both were fortunate that we came out of a notoriety like Sly and the Family Stone and Lee Oskar from War, right? Greg Rico there. So at the point where we connected, we had so much we want to still let out and accomplish, and so to me, Greg Rico is like my brother. It's like my dear friend. He's like this. I'm fortunate to say I actually got a couple of really dear friends, and I can name them, and
you got a lot of people blessing you on this broadcast. So you got more than a few.
But Greg Rico is one of those guys.
Yeah.
And we go back. I can think really funny stories that are really dear to the heart about.
You share one?
Because Greg, I knew his parents, and there's one I always laugh about. See, his parents, like my roots. Are working class and very conservative and save up, for the things that count, rather than pissing it away on too much beer and still can't pay the rent, right? They'll buy a house, they'll save up and all that.
Yeah, right.
And I never forget, Greg, he bought this, he's gonna laugh at you, this rocking chair. This rocking chair, and he was so proud of it. He brought it home, and his father looked at it and says, "What the hell is this?" Because it was made out of twigs.
Right.
And Greg is convincing his father that it's a piece of furniture, and his father says, "It looked like stuff you put in the fireplace. What are you talking about?" It's like, because the old school craftsmanship of chairs, not
Right. I mean,
not
it was
weaving twigs like to make a rocking chair.
He still exudes that sort of blue collar ethic too in his own. Greg is still rock solid like that.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, we're just sort of at a critical point in the history of in the world, really. And I just would like you to talk about how, aside from the bandstand and the harmonica, if you could talk about your concept of love and how you bring love to the world.
Well, I mean, first thing comes to my mind when we talk about the world today compared to in the past is that the mystery is taken out of it. First of all, I mean, you can go within hours, minutes, hours, or whatever to any part of the world, Earth, the digital world, the communications with mobile phones, rather than the middle class America that had phones and nobody else, and it would be copper wire. The satellites, the whole digital world, everything is in real time. I mean, back in the days, if they show a war in the middle of the field, it would be like a newsreel showing it like 2 weeks after it happened. Here, you're seeing it in real time. So the good and bad is, the bad part of it is that people get desensitized. I mean, they get to see things that are not pretty in real time.
And they get the feeling that everything is not going well.
Maybe that, or they get so used to it that it gets so complacent, because at some point, in psychology,
yes.
I mean, it's like there are people who can tell you, are you going to believe you, or are you going to believe your eyes? Are you going to believe me or your eyes? You know what I mean? And eventually, so there's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of things in real time and all that.
How do you affect positive change in your world? I dig what you're saying on the macro level.
Well, I mean, anything that's positive is just look, I don't know how much we hear every day that you have to take to heart that is serious and the world is ending, or how much of it is bad, but it's going to be okay. But I can certainly say that if you're busy also while you can, to play music or paint or anything, whatever your zone is, that can really keep sanity. But if you're hearing all these sound bites, I mean, don't you think it's neurotic if they say hitchhiking is dangerous, and then people are scared of hitchhiking? It's good advice, but unless you had a bad experience yourself,
right, and
you have a fear about something without an experience, that's being neurotic.
That's heavy. That's true.
So so we are bombarded in real time with so many things that are not necessarily happy,
or they're not related to your own personal experience.
But they're not happy, and it's because people, I guess, if they knew that people are more entertained by pretty things, then the sensationalism wouldn't be about plane crashes. They would be talking about, hey, someone else just had a baby. Yay for humanity, right? In other words, there's so much going on, and because everything's in real time, there was a time where they probably in propaganda would say, when you can go from A to B in a half an hour, that means you got few hours in a day you can go play golf. But the truth really isn't now, because you can get there so fast. Now you got 5 things that they expect you to do in that afternoon, right? So no matter where you look at it, it's all become everything in real time, more and more and more and more. Like the phone, the cell phone, the bed, the. And if it's not applied to anything as a release that you really love doing, then what the hell? How can you survive?
Right. I was going to say, what we're doing here is inspirational, using technology for inspiration, and people are on fire. That's what love will do.
That's what love will do.
Did you play a role in craft? Because
no.
That song, I mean, it is one of the most.
Wow.
I was kind of hoping. Could you talk about that song?
When me and Eric joined, and the band was called The Night Shift. and they were backing up Deacon Jones.
Deacon Jones at
football player.
the doll, some doll,
He was
the
like
paper
this-
doll or something.
He was doing a singing debut. This football player. Anyhow.
The football player Deacon Jones.
Yeah, so Eric and I, we connected with them, and then the next day we decided I'll call Eric Burton War. I mean, so there's a lot of carryover. Some of the guys have been together, known each other for many more years than even my role, who has been there for so many years with, and the success that you all know about War, I have been there from that get-go. But before that get-go, it didn't start there with them. All these guys were playing together and try to survive, and amazing stories to tell you. So that was music that was written too, and some of that music, like That's What Love Will Do, carried over into the first projects we did. Yeah, that's.
Well, keep your love light on, Lee Oskar. What an honor to talk to you, brother. Thank you for being part of this retreat with Billy and everybody here, and we'll do it again soon, my man.
Thank you for digging deep and hearing myself talk. I talk about things I didn't even realize.
You need a drink. Yeah. We'll see you all later. Take care. This is the Jake
you.
Feinberg Show.